All right. So David and I met back in Guatemala in November 2022 when I had just started my freediving school. I was looking through old photos. He's actually in the first 10 students I ever taught, which is pretty crazy. And since then, we both tracked each other's lives through social media, as many a modern friendship now goes. And I've been highly interested and impressed with what he's been up to. So he is also sharing a passion which blends the physical and the mindful, like I have been. But like I haven't been, he's doing it within the context of a city, of Melbourne. And he's also running the social media of that and showing what it actually is, sharing the message essentially, and painting the picture in a really professional, well edited, designed way. And these are all lackings of mine for sure. So I've been very keen to pick his brain and get him on the pod and just hear his story of how he's got to the point he is. And yeah, it certainly surprised me because again, it's a someone I connected with and have followed, but in such a narrow version. And of course, there's I've seen a tip of an iceberg and what's under the water, right? So without further ado, from the man himself, David Vivona, here is the full interview, all 2 hours of it. It does start with a 10-minute meditation, of course, which he ran for us, which was beautiful. If you do want to watch that, you're more than welcome. It is there, but there will be a little skip button for it. And yeah, let it roll.
Beautiful. So, before we begin, we're just going to do a quick awareness practice, noticing our sit bones underneath us touching the bed. Then going to move that awareness all the way up through the spine, making sure our spine is truly elongated. The crown of the head is being pulled up towards the sky. The shoulders are coming away from the ears, releasing tension through the upper body. And moving that awareness to our own breath. On the inhale, filling our stomach up with oxygen, follow that breath all the way up to your heart. And gently exhale. Coming in through our nose, gently out through the mouth, just like you're blowing out a candle. Just noticing that we're feeling a little bit more comfortable with each breath we take. A little bit more settled into this seated position. Feeling a little bit more yourself, having comfort in that. Just follow the natural breathing rhythm. Just want to be aware of any thoughts that we might have before we begin. Just want to remove any expectations that we also might have. And we do this through our exhale. So as we breathe in, exhale, releasing any expectations that we might have for the next hour. Now coming back to the breath, just want to make the exhalation and inhalation a few seconds longer each time. So we're trying to deepen the breath, get into that relaxed state, flow state. Releasing all the air out of our body. It's an interesting concept that in order to receive a full breath, we must first fully let go of everything that we have, all the oxygen that we have in our body. So on the exhale, let's fully release. Beautiful. Just take our final deep breath in. And fully exhale, then hold. When you hold, I want you to feel all the sensations through the body. You need to take another deep breath in. Let's take another sip through the nose. Hold again, then fully release. You just start to move the body, bring some awareness back. Roll the shoulders in a circular motion. Beautiful. When you're ready, you can gently open your eyes, still looking, keeping your gaze down towards the ground. Just noticing any differences, any subtle changes. You can bring your vision up slowly. Nice, brother. Done.
Thank you.
Have a drink of water, mate. That's good.
Put my water over there. Wow. David Vivona.
Hey,
Welcome.
Brown. Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
Likewise. That was so special. Um, yeah, we'll discuss. I'm sure we'll get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want this to all be mainly it's an interview of you. But you saw me in Guatemala and facilitating that kind of stuff. Never really doing it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you feel like that in
Always.
Melbourne. I've had a severe lack of that in Melbourne as well for the last 7, 8 months. Very, very nice. Very appreciative.
It's interesting. I feel sometimes facilitating almost helps more than when you're doing this session.
Mm,
As in, like, joining in. So, what I just did then, I feel you're literally telling the step yourself, you're reminding yourself the things that you need to
mm,
when you're facilitating. And I think that's my favorite way of doing it. You just being super authentic with it and just saying whatever comes up to in mind. So rather than having it all planned out and having it really rigid and structured, just let it flow. And I find that for me almost helps me more than doing my own meditation.
nice.
Yeah.
You're speaking to someone who has, yeah, made basically a sales pitch
Mm.
script for their meditation class.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the only way you can scale
Yeah.
and just pump it out the
100%.
numbers and make money from it
Mm-hmm.
in terms of actually getting the value back.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's just I have a really powerful idea. Now, how can I systemize this and almost a printing press
Yeah.
so it's less taxing energetically?
100%. Yeah.
But maybe you're saying if you flow with it and are able to flow and put yourself in a position where you can regularly, consistently do that, you'll actually get fed from it every time you do it
For sure.
rather than having to give it through the script. Interesting.
Mm.
Wow. Cool. Nice. David, I'm not going to have as good a posture as you in this
Okay.
podcast, I don't
Well,
think.
I'm gonna keep reminding myself, right? Because the shoulder's a bit sore at the minute, so just gotta roll back.
Is it?
Yeah,
Nice.
too much.
Now, we met each other, what, almost 2 years ago now,
Almost 2 years.
and pretty briefly at that.
Yeah.
You were one of my first freediving students in Guatemala, and um, not that there wasn't this connection at the start, there's connection with all sorts of people, but I think the reason I've engaged in your story as a human has actually been since then.
Mhm.
Um, Seeing what you've done in this mindfulness, yoga, fitness space, and how you're sharing that, like, or marketing that, I guess, on social media, and trying to really provide maybe what I feel is the value of the lake and the value of that mindfulness space that's so strong in a place like that,
Mhm.
and feels, at least to me, so weak in a place like Melbourne.
Yeah.
Trying to bridge that gap. Um, I tell some people I feel like that bridge, but I have no idea how to, like. I have a very good idea how to make that side of the bridge in Guatemala, and very little in Melbourne. So that's why I wanted to bring you in today to
Mate, no doubt,
just pick your brain.
for sure.
Now, you are doing some crazy training at the moment by the looks of it.
No doubt,
What do
bro.
you got? A
Yeah.
3 hour run coming up?
I got, yeah, just after this, gotta go straight to 3 hours,
And you're
bro.
pumping numbers as well. You're like, what speed are you running?
Well, today will be 5 minute pace,
Okay.
so just need to get 3 hours
So it's
as part of
36
my long
Ks.
run. Around 36, yeah, I'll hit 36 today. I know, fuck it. When you think about it, it's like, fuck, it's gonna be
So when are you
tough day.
training?
I've got the Melbourne Marathon coming up.
Okay.
So I'll do the Melbourne.
But you're going to do that quick.
I'll do that at 4:30 pace. So 3 hours 15. Yeah,
No.
in total. So training's been good.
3 hours 50. I mean, some people, I don't
Yeah,
presume no one watches this, but
exactly. Yeah,
like
yeah.
3 hour marathon or anywhere close to it is
It
cooked shit.
it's cooked, but then once you're in the process and training for something, you realize it's very achievable.
Okay. Yeah.
So it is that thing where you're like, holy fuck, that's crazy. But once you get into the rhythm and you put some big weeks together, you're like, oh, okay. You can see how you can piece it together for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but back to what you were saying in Guatemala, I feel there's certain people on your trip, and if you do ever get to experience a long trip like sort of we have, there's people that you really do remember, and I feel like you're one of those people. So it was really nice to interact to begin with, and then to get your socials, and just to, even though we met once, you follow each other on this journey,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, like every now and then, oh, Tim Brown will come up, oh, he's still in Guatemala, still doing his thing, and like, fuck, that's sick, and you feel like you're, it, this doesn't feel like we've met for
No.
only once, right?
You invested.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, fucking, you sort of waiting for the next story or the next thing, and you're like, oh, that's sick, bro, that's sick. So I feel like I've got a lot of friendships like that. It's
Mm.
just a modern day friendship, eh? Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I think too much about it, I'm like, that's shit. But like,
Mm,
it's super cool. And
mm,
I think denying that would be, going against a beautiful thing.
exactly, bro. Couldn't agree more.
Very cool. I just want to paint the picture of where you're currently at and like hype you up a bit.
Fucking, let's do that.
Because, yeah, like this crazy training, and as you say, I'm seeing these stories and stuff, not just now because of what you're personally doing, but I think the real draw is you're obviously doing personal training stuff and the social media stuff. And I just think about one thing specifically. Everyone should follow Vivona Flow.
Thank you,
Um,
bro.
and you have these yoga sessions in the park. And so it's already like a bit of a, not a completely not like revolutionary idea, but not everyone's kind of going out to the park and
Hmm.
doing it. But I think for someone who's just starting, just setting up, it's $10 or something, is it?
Uh,
20,
the park yoga's free.
free.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so like
Park yoga's free.
there you go. Like
Yeah,
I was thinking $10, not a lot of money. It's not like some established
yeah.
business thing. You nonetheless, you're still doing it more professionally than established, at least how I perceive it.
Okay,
You've got like
appreciate it.
20 people there.
Yeah,
You've got the camera set up, the A-frame little
yeah.
board with your
Oh,
logo.
the logo. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's sick.
you're running like these mics and you're going around, and it's not just yoga, but doing these reels of showing, what it actually would be like going. And then
Hmm.
afterwards, and this is the real kicker, afterwards, we kind of give the group pair into stranger pairs, like someone you've never met before, and talk or set intentions or something like this. Is that
Yeah, pretty
correct?
much. So I give him a topic, and the topic can range from something that's super chill, or it can be quite personal, or allows the person to be vulnerable.
Mm,
And then I usually get, so my tactic is people usually sit next to the people that they know. So I'll say
yeah.
turn around to the person behind you. Usually that's someone they don't know. If you do, just try and find someone else. And yeah, I've found that that just opens up a can of worms, especially if you're trying to connect to community. Because
Mm,
once people start talking about a topic, that topic is not really, they're not meant to be talking about that topic the whole time. It's just a little icebreaker. And then I love when, because I go around to each group,
that's the thing. You go with your mic, you're
yeah,
mic'd up, and you go
go
and
around.
join the
Yeah, I should
conversation,
explain.
and
Yeah, that's
you're
right.
like a
Yeah.
shaman, just
Yeah,
like
just
put it.
going around, bro. And I find like when I go, end up going to the sort of last people, they're talking about something completely different or how they know this person, how they know that person. I love that, like, because then they've built that connection, they've built that friendship. Bang, they're
Mm,
in.
yeah.
And they don't need to be invested into the flow. They need to be invested into each other and that connection, wanting that connection. And my sort of, I guess, philosophy behind, not philosophy, I guess my intention behind Vivona Flow was connecting within and first, and then connecting with the people around you. So you're
Very
connecting
cool.
within with connecting, I guess, your breath with the movement, with your mind, and then through the topic, you can connect with the people around you.
You know what? I think the meditation, yoga, hippie, whatever you want to call it, space gets a lot of flack,
Mm-hmm.
rightfully so,
Yeah.
for being solipsistic, selfish, unbearable pricks.
Yeah,
You know, you go to a town like San Marcos
mate.
in Guatemala, and the people are fully set up there. Some of the best people I've ever met in the world are fully set up there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the most unbearable,
Literally, bro.
selfish people, fake, surface level,
Yeah.
are there as well because they're missing that
Mm-hmm.
link, aren't they? And I think I remember someone from home who was a few years above me in school came to Guatemala in those early days and said, "Man, are you here for good?" I'm like, "No, no, no. Melbourne's home. I'm just here to do a thing and try it out." And he's like, "Oh, good," because I kind of worry about people who come to a place like this. What are you escaping from?
Mm.
You know, you're escaping from yourself, you escaping from your culture. And I'm going back now, and I definitely have that in mind. I don't want to be escaping. I don't want to be running and taking an easier, but also a more selfish path in that sense. And I think that's what I see you doing uniquely well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. That's I really resonate with that. How you said that, yeah, what are you escaping? I really, yeah, I found, mm,
So maybe we just start
yeah,
unpacking a story
yeah, let's
and
do that.
see
Let's do
how it
that.
brings us back. Because, yeah, like, I don't know how far back you want to go, but you gave me all those voice memos.
Yeah, I did,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay, I'll fire off some things and maybe they'll elaborate naturally as we go. But you're a twin,
Twin, yep,
twin.
twin sister, man. Got
Okay,
a,
sister.
so that was, I guess it's it's not super uncommon, but you do feel a point of difference compared to others having someone that you've literally grown up with. And when I reflect on it, it's something that you reflect on when you're a bit older, right?
Yeah.
And when I reflected on that, it's like you've shared the same space up until 12, 13 years old. Then we had a high school that we weren't going we were kind of going our separate ways. And
Yeah.
then after that, you're like, fuck, like this is a such a special connection because we know each other
Mm.
like the back of your hand, you know? So we're quite similar in our characteristics, but so different in what we want from life.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I fucking after you can swear on this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sick. Okay, so um
Something. Well, like,
after high school we just got super close again. I feel like I was just being a boy, the classic just teenage boy throughout high school, and I didn't really value what I had. So yeah, having that connection now has just made, yeah, it's just made things a lot better in terms of my relationship with myself and also with her. So yeah,
Mm.
it's quite cool. It's quite cool when you think about it.
I definitely resonate with that because 24 hours ago, sitting in your position was my own sister who,
No doubt, bro.
from being kids and bully our older
Mm,
brother, to now it's like, oh, this is the one person who's hopefully going to be around this whole journey of life.
100%, mate. Yeah.
Friends and relationships come and go, but
Is your
parents will
sister
die. Like
older?
younger.
Younger? Okay, you're
Yeah,
older brother. Yeah,
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 got ya.
exactly. That's really cool. And then just to keep on painting that picture of early days, like you grew up next door with like nonna,
Yeah, no, 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 no.
strong Italian family. I was at last night, uh, similar like northern suburbs, Italian
Yeah,
mama's boy, like it's
yeah. Fuck that. That's
full into
literally
it.
it, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Where were you? What? Sorry.
Carlton.
Okay, yeah. I'm a
Yeah.
bit more north. I'm sort of that Coburg, Faulkner
Yeah.
area. So
So, real quick, can you paint the picture of what that is like
okay,
now being out of it and seeing how other people grew up? That's a unique
no
experience.
doubt, for sure. I think always explaining it to people, everyone was always a bit surprised. Like, oh, you live next door to your grandparents, and yeah, I'm like, yeah, fuck. And then another thing, when it's like the same thing, as soon as you get a little bit older, you're like, fuck, this is really special. So pretty much, we got my house. Next door is my grandparents' house.
Hmm.
There's a connecting door at the back,
Nice.
so into the garden, and we got quite a lengthy backyard, both of us. So there's actually two doors, one that connects through the gardens, and then one that connects through sort of like the house area.
Mm,
Growing up through that, it's something that I had so much exposure and time with my grandparents. So as I was growing up, when my mum had to go to work, I would go next door because
mm.
they'd look after me, right? And I actually had my great grandma the house after. So it was three in a row, mate. And I had my
Fuck.
uncle in the same street.
Oh
So
my
it's
God.
so
It's like,
Italian, right?
how much is that? 4 generations.
Yeah, literally four generations in three houses. So yeah, super lucky. And I spoke Italian before English because I was always there and they'd
Wow.
speak to me in Italian and they wanted me to learn Italian. And throughout high school, I sort of lost it a bit because you only speak English. But
Yeah.
after high school, so I sort of said to my grandparents, let's make sure that we only speak in Italian, just so I can keep that. And it's all in my brain. So you just
Mm,
got to just get it back out, right? But yeah, having that growing up was just like super special in terms of being raised in that authentic culture, I
mm.
feel. And I noticed that especially when I went overseas last year and I saw my dad's side. So this is my mum's side, by the way.
Okay.
When I saw my dad's side for the first time
In Italy.
in Italy.
Okay.
So they live in Milan. They're all from the south, but they live in Milan. And
They follow
being,
the money.
yeah, right, everyone, there's nothing in the south. Like in
Yeah.
terms of work, everyone goes up north. All the young kids, everyone's up north. So for me, when I was there at my Zia's place, it was in Italy. It was like being next door, and that's when I really was like, wow, this is kind of how I've been raised
Mm,
in some ways. So yeah, as much as I am Australian, and
mm.
I'm so proud to be Australian as well, it's just like you are raised in an Italian culture, which is so strong.
Very
Yeah.
cool. How do you perceive and how do you operate through Australian culture, the normal kind of household and whatever that
Mm-hmm.
maybe your friends have been raised? How do you kind of view it?
Mm.
Because, like, for instance, it's very easy for me to judge it quite negatively of,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
buffoonery and, why you care about the footy and,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
shit like this.
yeah. How do I view? So I'd definitely say, well, what I've noticed as well is that I guess we can go back to Vivona flow and community and connection,
Mm,
whereas not that Australian people, like Australian culture isn't, but in Italian culture, it's a lot more common to be super, super tight with everyone, live with nonna, nonno. And for my Zia, for example, her mum lives with her,
yeah.
right? So it's just that, and I think that caring nature where you're, it feels like that in the Italian culture, your role after a certain time is to look after your parents, which
Mm,
is beautiful. And not to say that you can't do that here, but often it's like you can go to aged care and whatnot. And I feel like in that Italian culture, it is really strong to be with them the whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've sort of noticed that that was probably a point of difference where I noticed for sure.
Do you think that, because, and I mean, this is diving a bit, thinking about stuff straight away, but having lived in Australia quite, eyes wide
Hmm.
open for the last year, I boil it down to like there's this seemingly lack of spirituality. It's almost as if we killed all the Aboriginals and then we
Hmm.
replaced it with God or alcoholism.
Mm.
Take your pick. And then now it's like alcohol's not fashionable and God's not fashionable. So now it's like
Yeah.
what do you have left?
Yeah.
And it's not that interconnected family stuff, and it's not a religion, and it's not a substance, and it's is it money? It
Mm.
feels like it's money, increasingly so, and this might just be me, but having that comparison between the Italian, like pure spiritual connectedness. Yeah, how do you see Australia going right? How do you see it going wrong? How do you flow within that?
Mm. Okay, I'd say
Because is there not so much friction, or do you just not feel that?
friction with.
When you're kind of going around and you're seeing these people living those lives, or do you just see it through rose-colored glasses because you've got that Italian?
I think it's hard to sometimes you get caught up within it and amongst it when you're living in it.
Mm,
I've always felt like and you'd probably notice this as well when you leave.
mm,
uh, you can almost see Australia and I guess Melbourne culture for what it is. But when you're immersed in it, it's quite hard to sort of see what's going on because you're in it, right? And
mm,
that's what I've noticed as well. And it's almost like is I really remember when I got back from the trip that I met you. It literally, as soon as you landed in the airport, it's like, whoa, I'm back in this race kind of thing. So it
yeah,
kind of feels like once you're in it, it's too hard to see. And at the moment, I feel like I've been in it for a good year now. I've been home for almost a year. And it's almost like, yeah, you're in this sort of realm where you're trying to self-improve and you're trying to build this and you're trying to build your podcast, your flow, your training, everything. And you're just so immersed in what you're doing that it's like, fuck, I can't actually take the step back to see.
that's what I'm kind of asking, I
Yeah.
guess. Like, I feel that. I think everyone would feel that. There's pressures, there's
Mm.
race where we're going. So, it, how are you connecting? Because obviously you have the example from the Italian family. Are
Hmm.
you using that well, or are you struggling, or are you,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. So what I do to ensure I'm reconnecting with that is so I'm living in Richmond at the moment.
Mm,
I'll go home once a week
yeah.
and just sit with them for an hour, 2 hours.
Mm,
And it's funny that when you live next door, you're happy with a 2 minute conversation because you know you're going to see him tomorrow, right?
yeah.
Just in the backyard, or if you run, just go over for a bit, say hello, whatever. But when that's taken away from you, that time becomes so valuable. So what I'm doing for my own heart and for myself is to make sure that I give myself a good hour, 2 hours just to sit with them, talk to them, ensure that, and I guess in some ways it's you just I'm trying to continue to speak Italian. So
Yeah.
that's my only way that I would. So
Yeah,
it's a
true.
beautiful thing.
Okay.
You sort of doing two things at once, I guess. So it's quite nice.
Nice. And I'm just thinking about other people who don't have an Italian grandparent duo,
Yeah.
they're accessible for an hour to a week. They, I guess, have to rely on you to be filling your cup to then do a free yoga class at the park,
No
which is
shit.
community driven, because you're kind of transferring that energy, channeling
Okay.
into that. And then the people who don't have an Italian grandparents can come to your yoga class and get
Exactly.
a bit of a
Exactly.
remnant of it.
100%.
It's,
100%. Yeah.
it's like the Italian grandparents are the spiritual heart of
Mate,
Melbourne.
that's literally that's the Mecca, mate. That is the
Yeah.
Mecca.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm trying to think. I know so many people, and I could say to myself as well that don't have something like that, or maybe don't feel it and don't appreciate it for what it is. But I certainly have far more like materialistic grandparents, for
Mm.
instance, and when I'm there, I'm like, "Ugh," like
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
the last thing you're meant to be doing is meditating.
No shit. Yeah, yeah.
Maybe that's
100.
the same for the grandparents as well in Italy. Uh, anyway, yeah, I just wanted
Well,
to.
it's interesting because I'd say like if I showed them what meditation is, they'd be like, "What? Like, what's going on?" Like, they wouldn't even get it, right? But
Mm,
it's similar. What I'm, what my purpose is for, I guess, meditation is connection based,
mm,
and I get that connection with them through conversation.
yeah.
So that connection is that's that underlining word, right? But
Mm.
you're getting it through different ways.
That's a very cool point. I was thinking about this before because obviously I'd had a little run with free diving, and it's kind of clear to me that it's beyond free diving,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just, I guess, as you say, a tool, and you can kind of go two paths of that. Do you just keep on using it as that your tool and building that, but recognizing it's just a tool, or do you look for other tools and think they're the answer? But like, yeah, that's a really wise thing of noticing. Okay, it's actually connection and
Mm-hmm.
community that I'm trying to build,
Yeah,
and then how can I most efficiently get to that?
no
Because
doubt.
maybe not everyone has the time of day to be growing tomatoes and
No,
having
you
coffees
can't.
in the
You
city,
can't,
right?
mate.
Maybe they need to get jam packed into 1 hour yoga class. Like,
Mm, for sure. Or it could be anything that they love. I guess you can kind of say that that is your flow state, right?
mm,
So whatever if you're painting, if you're writing, whatever, if you're podcasting, whatever it is, and just finding that and putting yourself in that situation, or trying to find time for that situation or that moment. So yeah, for sure.
cool, nice.
Mm,
All right, we're gonna have to dissect that. I think I lost myself a
that's G, bro.
bit there. But mate, so you've had this upbringing, you've had your nonna and nonna. Um, you were telling me about at 16 years old, you had this little footy journey.
Mm,
Do you want to
yeah,
recount that?
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So pretty much played just local footy my whole life and never was trying sports here and there. You play with your mates here and there, but it was always like playing footy and that was it, right? And up until like 16, I was no good. And then I had a really good pre-season and
Mm.
I sort of showed myself that it was the first time I realized that if you dedicate 100% into something, and I was going, because I was playing in the senior team and for my under 16s or 17s level, I was doing it so much, and it's that I read this book around the same time or a few years later, and it was like that 10,000 hours if you want to
Oh, yeah.
master something.
Yeah.
So that sort of saying, and that really, I was reflecting on my that footy time where I was putting so much time and energy and effort into it just because I loved it, and I was so sick
Mm.
that I ended up having like the best season I could have in terms of like I got won like the best and fairest,
Oh, shit.
won the grand final, was like so good. But I was also playing in the senior team, so they needed someone.
Wait, seniors are like 18 and above though, right?
Seniors, yeah, is like yeah, open age, so it'd be like you're playing against men, and
Okay.
like at a young age, like
And you're 16.
yeah, I was like 16, 17 in that age bracket. But what happened was that I distinctly remember we had our grand final and they were playing the week after. And in my head, that grand final was my goal, right? That's
Mm.
what I wanted. And it was like up until then, I'd never had like a race or anything that I'd had to achieve or finish. So it was always footy, seasons of footy, but I felt that as soon as I hit that grand final, that mindset that I had that I was so hungry for, like to achieve,
Mm.
completely just shut off. And I was like,
Oh,
fuck. And I needed to be up. I could have given myself the best opportunity to play in that senior team the next week, but I had set myself the target. So once I hit that goal, it was like bang.
yeah. No
So
more fuel.
yeah, and it felt. I think I mentioned this to you where now I view things as everything's like the game before the grand final.
The prelim.
The
That's this
prelim.
weekend.
That's this
That's
week, bro.
tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. That's tonight,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
So
true.
everything's the prelim final for me.
Yeah.
So there's always one more game. There's always one more race. So it's like, kind of like you're never gonna achieve it and then you can
And
relax.
be done. That's
Yeah.
such a good. Oh, that's such a good. You need to kind of say that again. I've had it for some reason. It's kind of serendipitous.
Mm-hmm.
This last week, I've had one quote. I don't know that we don't rise to our goals. We fall to our habits,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess that's trying to get you towards. But also simple things. I never knew this, but bamboo. Have you heard this one?
Bamboo.
Bamboo is underground. to grass. It's growing root systems and stuff for years.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it's ready, it shoots up sky high in like 6 weeks,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
It's this kind of all these things happen, and then suddenly, or ice, for instance, you have ice in a freezer, -6 degrees, it's frozen, -5 degrees, it's frozen, -4 degrees, it's still ice,
Yeah.
-3, -2, -1, it's still ice,
Mm-hmm.
and then 0, 1 degrees, suddenly it's just melted.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you put in all that energy and effort to up the temperature and it didn't seemingly do anything.
Mm.
Then suddenly it flips over.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's where my mind went when you said that.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
You're doing all these things to just build this base of a pyramid to
Bang.
get this grand final, but then you realize that's not even the thing, you
That's
know?
not even the thing, right?
Yeah. I've
100%.
definitely fallen victim to that so many times in my life of I always thought about it as poker. I'm like, playing good hands, I'm
Mm.
getting chips, I'm collecting chips, and then all in.
All in. Yeah.
And you can't do all in,
Yeah.
right? You need to keep on kind
Yeah.
of collecting them forever.
That's it. Collecting the chips. No
Yeah.
doubt.
Wow, that's so good. So that footy journey has taught you that like one more mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where did you take that? Like, did you take that through high school, after high school? What?
Yeah. So I think it was definitely after high school because it was like around that 16, 17 year. So it was like you almost done high school.
Yeah.
And then it took it through, I was getting into sort of endurance sports. So I was like looking at, you probably the same, like Ironmans, fuck, that'll be cool. Run a half marathon, that'll be cool. So I started with the half marathon. Still remember to this day, it's like one of the hardest things you ever do. Like,
Yeah.
holy, and this was only a half.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was like struggling, battling so hard.
This is your first thing,
First
right?
half
Yeah.
marathon, and then you end up doing. I was like, you know what, I've done half. I can probably do a full. So trained up for my full.
Yeah.
And like most people, for their first, you get to that 30K mark,
Oh,
and
right.
you don't even want to talk about it for those people that don't run. It's just like you don't know what happens. You're completely depleted of everything. You can't even take another step. So it was just me and my mate on he was on the bike just feeding me drinks, and
Yeah.
he's like my best mate still, and he's just always keen to help me. And he just I know he was just looking at me like, what the fuck's going on? Like, he's literally walking, but like, I'm just doing it like a jogging
Yeah.
sort of
I
act
will not
motion.
walk.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I was just like so fucked. But yeah, it was just always that mindset of like, all right, I've done this, let's go one more, let's do something else. So then I just did a few triathlons, did the half Ironman, got into my marathons quite a bit.
mm,
But I was also trying to upskill in other areas. So it was like, can we get good at boxing? Can we get
mm,
good at yoga? So it was like doing all these things just because I wanted to be good at it.
yeah. And
And
this is just the year out of school, is this
so
or
this is probably 19, 20,
okay?
21.
And are you doing uni or something like?
Okay, so yeah, I was doing my sport and exercise science.
Okay, yeah,
So I had sport and exercise science straight out of high school, a fresh 18, had no idea how to study, bro. Like,
yeah.
failed two subjects
Oh,
in the first semester,
classic.
dropped it. I'm like, I actually can't do it. So I thought this is get more of I thought my sport and exercise science degree, I thought the sport was more of a hobby rather than a career for me.
Sure.
So I was like, fuck it, I need to get a good job and then I can always play sport or be fit on the side.
Yeah,
And then I worked for half a year doing landscaping.
yeah.
Fucking so tough, man. Like
Yeah.
one of the hardest trades of all time. It's got to be. Um, and then I ended up finding construction management and project management through that. So
Yeah.
I was like, I'm always on the job site. Maybe this will be a good job. And
You
I
don't have to
say,
break your back.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I know I can overlook. It's good money. And I say like good job because that's what I was looking for.
Mm,
So I did 2 years throughout COVID, was training pretty hard, trying to get good at a few things. And along the way, I'm building these skills that I didn't realize would help me to like where I am right now.
yeah.
So I was learning how to box, learning, running a lot, doing a lot of gym stuff. So that was sort of helping me, but that was in the background.
Mm,
So it was like this construction management was overtaking everything because I'm like, that's going to be my career.
yeah, sure.
So I finished
And the careers, especially as we were saying, in the context of Melbourne, really eat your
mate,
energy and time.
100%, bro.
Whatever you do, you just, yeah, I'll just do this
Mm,
as my thing, but I really care about the sports.
yeah,
And then you kind of get more and more, oh, I can do this, try
yeah.
harder, get more grades, earn more money. Like,
Hmm.
Real.
And it's real easy to fall into that trap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see it, and I felt like I was falling into that trap where, okay, this is going to be my good job. So this, and then I was always in the background, oh, but maybe I can do like PT on the side or do something. But when you think like that, you'd think, like now looking back, I'm like, why would I just not do the thing that I wanted to do anyway?
It's the classic man. It's like we chase success, right? Because we think that'll make us happy.
Hmm.
Well, we sacrifice happiness to chase success because we think that's going to make us
No doubt, no doubt,
happy.
no doubt. So it got to 2 years after I finished my diploma, was going into my bachelor's.
Hmm.
In that bachelor year, I'm like, I want to go to college, so I'll just use this. I'll do an exchange program
Oh, to the States.
to the States.
Okay, yeah.
So you could choose a few locations, but I wanted to go to college because I'm like,
Yeah.
that's going to be so sick. You've seen it on the movies, you've heard
Yeah.
about it. I was like, it'll be
And
so
you're like,
cool to
what,
go.
21? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
21.
you
So I
can
was like,
drink,
so
like,
keen. Yeah. So ended up getting accepted to go to college,
sick.
but that took a lot of effort because I needed a really good GPA in that first semester.
Yeah.
So I'd worked so hard in this first semester, got accepted, but in between that process, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this because I've got another 2.5 years. I know I want to be a
Right.
PT, so I've
Yeah.
sort of gone full circle, come back to the PT and fitness stuff, and I'm like, holy fuck.
Is it because like because you had to go so hard at the construction management that you in at least in that semester probably would have had to drop to the side a lot of that stuff you're really into, the fitness side, and it just wasn't feeding your soul enough, and you just really opened eyes, looked at it like this is not what I want to be doing. This is what I want to be doing. Maybe if I can do it half half, but if I
Mm,
have to go all in for this grade,
yeah,
it just shows you that
yeah, 100%.
yeah,
That for sure. It showed me that, yeah, because I had to put a few things aside. So I
yeah.
was doing this, I was studying for this construction management stuff, and then I guess I was looking at the job as a whole, and the job's taking so much of your energy, and that's what the job, I guess, what your career should do. It should take
Yeah.
um, most of your effort and energy because you want to be putting a lot of energy into that thing.
Mm.
So if I'm half-assing that job, then why would I want to be doing that? And if it's going to be consuming me,
Mate,
so
that is so good. And I think this is, I've seen a lot of it because I've this year, to my own detriment,
hmm
been sucked into a similar thing of this is not what I want to be doing, but I can see a clear path in a few years to this making enough money to then build what I actually want to be doing.
hmm
And it's so easy to do,
no
especially in the
doubt.
context of Melbourne where you do need to be paying bills and stuff. So you better be making money along the
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
right? And I
yeah,
think that's
yeah,
the thing. The
for sure.
PT, freediving, whatever it is, it might take 6 months. It might take a year to actually pay, like
Mm,
to make any money, right?
exactly.
You're
Yeah,
giving free yoga classes. So it's
exactly,
like, how do you
exactly
pay the
right.
rent?
Yeah.
So I think like without people giving themselves that opportunity to have this window of time to like let it figure itself out and then maybe start to slowly trickle things in or be willing to like no, I'm going to be strict, only work 2 shifts a week and I'm going to be poor because I'm putting and but I'm going to be working so hard because I'm putting all this energy.
Mm,
It's really hard to just let yourself do that, I
no
think.
doubt, for sure.
Especially the older you get. Yeah. Okay, cool.
For sure.
Yeah, like
So I was
that's just what I've seen. Like
just gone. So I was talking about the.
construction
Wait,
management. So you're in the US,
yes, that's
but
right.
you'd realize that it's not what you wanted to do because of that. Real quick, like, have there been lessons and gratitudes from that journey with the construction management?
No doubt. I
Yeah.
think similar to what I was saying about that footy path
Mm,
where I put invested so much time into something, I then showed myself again that I can study. So it was
mm,
like answering that sort of question I had. Like I had that question mark over my head saying, can I study? Can I actually work hard for something
yeah.
intellectually and put my time and effort into education? And that showed me that I put so much, because it was like through COVID, you had so much more time, right? So I put a lot of energy into that and ended up passing really well. Like I did really, really well in that sort of course. So that sort of transferred, and I was like, it's not just because you're good at construction management, it's just because you put a lot of time and energy into something
Yeah.
and you actually gave it a fucking go, right? So that's probably what I got out of it the most. yeah, definitely that.
That's
100%.
so good because I've
Yeah.
said that a lot as well. Like, there's almost these journeys, these chapters in life where it might not be the most aligned, it might not be the thing, but if it's a moment where you did go all in on something
Mm-hmm.
and got a result, got success, you can leverage that into the next pursuit and just back yourself
Mm.
that no, if I do, I've got I basically got the stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a matter of the more times I prove to myself that I've got the stuff, I can then be more picky with where I channel that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you've I kind of failed uni, you're probably not wanting to back yourself to go out on a leg and start
No
a
doubt,
business, right?
for sure.
Yeah, cool. Okay, nice. How was the US?
So go straight to end up getting accepted to go to Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Took me, the US visa is so fucking
Oh,
crazy, bro.
it's
So it took
crazy,
me
yeah.
ages, and I only got my visa accepted a week before my plane was gonna leave. So I had
What?
my plane ticket ready. I just got it because shit was getting expensive, and you can't just wait last minute. So I
No.
bought it. I'm like, fuck it. I'm gonna need this visa ASAP. So I ended up going the day before because they take your passport, they put a piece of paper with your visa
Because this is for
thing in
like a
it.
student visa,
Yeah, like
right?
a J1. I
How
think
long? How long was
it
it?
was meant to be 6 months.
Okay,
So you're meant to
cool.
be there for
Yeah.
6 months, whole semester. So I remember I had to drive to the passport office the day before, and just by chance they had it. It was like this shitty little office, and they had it. So I grabbed my passport, went straight home, felt so relieved, had my bags packed, gonna be my first trip overseas, and I knew that I was gonna drop this course.
What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
That is.
I
Wait,
know.
okay.
It was pretty like now you look back and you're like, what the fuck was I even thinking, right? But I had this plan where I was gonna I'd already started my PT course before I left,
Yeah.
so I was transitioning through to the PT stuff.
Okay, right, yeah.
So my plan was to finish both my bachelor and my PT course. But it's that fine line of like not wanting to give up and quit on something,
Yeah.
but then also knowing that if I do quit, I guess quit or leave that behind,
Pivot.
it's gonna open up it pivot exactly, and it's gonna open up the doors to what I actually want to do. So it was a hard decision because you're like in your own head, like, fuck, I don't just want to give up on something. It's not me,
I
you know?
put 2 years into it, and if I do it another 2 years, no matter what happens, I'll always have like a steady, stable, high-paying job.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like it.
exactly. So yeah, it was kind of hard to make that choice. I didn't tell anyone. I just packed, like, literally packed my.
Literally no one.
No, I didn't tell anyone about that I was going to drop out. So
Yeah.
everyone knew I was
Even
going.
like best mates and
No,
stuff.
I didn't tell anyone. Yeah, yeah, it was
How
pretty
strong
wild.
was that decision in your head?
Well, I think like just naturally, I was a pretty closed off person.
Yeah.
So in that time, I was like thinking about these things, and it was super difficult to make the decision. I guess not difficult making the decision, but difficult to know if that decision is the right one. And I
Mm,
guess we never know, right?
no,
Whatever we do, we
of
can
course
always have
not.
an intuition in how we feel. But that choice was like, fuck, I'm gonna do this and just see what happens. And my plan was to sort of travel afterwards anyway.
Okay, so you're
So
gonna go for 6 months for the semester,
yeah,
and enjoy the hell out of that, and then yeah, but I'm quitting.
yeah,
Go
so
travel.
pretty much. But what happened was I had to leave before like the census date, before
Oh,
you pay
okay.
the tuition fees.
Oh, because you don't want to pay US
Yeah,
tuition
yeah,
fees
yeah.
if you don't want
Because
to be there.
exactly. So
Oh,
my plan was just to enjoy the college, which I did. It was fucking good fun. End up
what? But
living.
only for a few weeks.
I was there for a month,
Okay,
so ended up being there for a month in the college. So
how is that?
man, it was like I felt like I got everything I needed to out of that. Because you think about one
Because you
month
don't
in,
give a fuck about studying at this
nah,
point, so you
so it
can
was
just
fine. It
yeah.
was like so good. So I met these two French guys and two Irish dudes,
Mm.
and I was living with these two US guys to begin with. So I was in the room with them. How's this? There was a note on the bench as soon as I opened the door, there was a note. He's like, hey guys, nice to meet ya. I'll see you in a week. I'm just off at band practice, and that was the most US thing of all time, bro. The
Yeah,
cunts go on a
practice.
band practice, right? So,
What?
um, ends up coming back. We met each other. They were nice guys, but probably not as relatable as these other dudes were.
Yeah.
The guys in
So
the
this isn't
international
like
group.
a frat house though. This is
Nah,
just a share house.
yeah, it's pretty much just an apartment complex,
Yeah.
and you're just living with internationals and people from the US as well. But in our building, there's a lot of mostly internationals.
Mm.
So it was really good fun because I think we had a similar, everyone's all on exchange, right? So you got
Mm.
that sort of common ground. Whereas I noticed with these students, like US students, some of them would live like 20 minutes away, but they still live on campus.
Yeah, so
So,
they're more like you in the last 2 years of kind of I'm at home and I'm kind of
mm,
uni and like they're not on a good vibe necessarily.
when I had accepted what I wanted to do, and that was like follow what I actually enjoy doing,
Mm.
you sort of start to see it through other people as well.
Mm.
And I could see that like some people were sort of not forcing themselves, but you can sort of feel the energy.
Yeah.
And it's only once I accepted my own that I could see it through the lens. It's like you put these glasses on, right? And you can see through other people. Like,
Bro, this is such a fucking funny image. Have you seen Happy Feet,
yeah,
the Penguin movie? Do you
yeah,
remember when they're all
I
dancing on
want,
this party
yeah,
and like he just fucking launches it off a cliff, the main character,
yeah.
and they were like, oh my God, did he die? Did he die? And then he bursts out and he's like, "Wow,
No
coming when
shit.
you're swimming in," and then like, everyone starts jumping off the cliff. I'm imagining that like you've jumped off the cliff, you've been like, uni, I've
Yeah.
gone for it, and then you're like, hang on, guys, you can come. It's not that
Mm,
scary. Like,
mm.
is that
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think that happened later on.
okay?
So we'll touch on that for sure. But throughout this experience, I got exactly what I needed to through the college, and I had heaps of fun. Like you go to the football games, it's fucking unreal. And then I ended up letting them know I was leaving. I had 2 weeks to leave the country. So I told them after 2 weeks, which brought me to a full month
Mm.
in the college. Had to leave because your visa expires. So I'm like, what am I
So
gonna do?
when you drop out of uni, you don't get the visa anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the visa's done, so they don't want you to stay. So I was like, fuck, I'm gonna have to go to Canada because I was in Cincinnati,
Yeah.
Ohio. So also most random joint of all time. Like it's so rogue,
Yeah.
but also like kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
So ended up going straight up to Niagara Falls,
Yeah.
Canada.
Okay.
Told my parents, I was like, oh look, I'm not feeling this. I'm gonna drop out, and they were super supportive, and
Ah,
they're
cool.
like cool with because they knew that before I went to college, I was having people over to train. So I was doing boxing sessions with people, and they could sort of see that. And my friends was saying, "Oh, David, you should be a PT," while my parents were around. I just remember having conversations, and my old man's like, was sort of thinking, "Yeah, yeah." Like I could see that he thought that as well. And it probably comes more natural to me rather than being in construction, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and when I told them, they were like, okay, just like, what are you going to do now? Like, what's your next move? And I was like, oh, I'm probably going to travel a bit, and they were pretty happy with just letting me go. And they've never really held me down with anything. They've always been super like, just do your thing,
Mm.
which is like been so amazing. So I ended up going to Canada. I went to Niagara Falls, and that also is a shithole. Like, it's a beautiful landscape of the actual falls,
Yeah.
but the city itself is like
Okay.
horrible, man. It's
Also,
like
there's a city there,
yeah,
of
it's
course.
almost like a country town, but there's like tall kind of sky rises and it's
Really.
a really weird vibe. I was staying in this motel, and the day I was gonna leave, I get a knock on my door. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like I look through the hole and there was like this guy just standing there, and then they had like a lowrider kind of thing, and this guy sitting on the lowrider, two guys. I'm like, holy fuck. So
What the
I had the
fuck?
lock on the door, like the classic lock
Yeah,
on thing.
yeah,
So I opened it halfway, and he's like, hey man. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, he's he said like Maria, is Maria here? I'm like, no, no. I'm like, no, it's just me. And I probably shouldn't have said that, right? I'm like, no, it's just me. He's like, oh yeah, just check if you're Maria. I'm like, nah. He's like, I've seen you before. I'm like, nah, you probably haven't, bro. And he's like, no, no, I've seen you. I'm like, nah, nah. And then because he had made such a loud noise with the bang, the girl next door opened up, and I think he was looking for her.
Okay.
So I've just gone, oh, sorry, bro, I gotta go. So I've closed the door. And at this point, I had this massive fucking backpack.
Mm.
So this is the backpack I took over with me. First
Okay.
time traveling, doing a big trip. So
Oh, so you've
you've
overpacked.
overpacked
Yeah, yeah,
naturally, right?
terrible. Yeah.
So I got this massive backpack, and I'm like, fuck, I've got to get rid of some. Like I just thought, like this is too heavy for me to even do anything to escape. And I'm like thinking,
Also, he was like aggressive.
no, not aggressive, but he was so sus, like super sus, and
Okay.
same as the guy in the car. Like they just looked like a weird vibe. So that just in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna go to Mexico after this because in my head I'm gonna go down. So I need to be light anyway. I need to
Yeah.
be light on. So anyway, I end up getting like I
But
just
this
like
is all happening in the moment when a guy
yeah,
someone else
yeah, yeah.
outside you.
I'm just thinking like I gotta get rid of some of this weight on this backpack, bro. So I ended up that was all good. I ended up leaving. I just waited for them to leave and then I just
Okay.
took off. But that when I got to New York, I shipped some of the stuff back home.
Okay.
So I'm like, fuck this, I gotta remove some of this stuff. So anyway, went to Mexico and in Mexico was like it just this weight's lifted off my shoulders with my career
Yeah.
and
Mexico's a good place to be light.
mate, 100%.
Where were you?
I went straight to Tulum.
Yeah.
Literally didn't know anything about Central America. Knew nothing about Mexico. So everyone was telling me go to Cancun. All these Americans,
Who
right?
the
So you take
fuck's
it,
telling you to go to
bro.
Cancun?
I was
Yeah.
around all these Americans, so
Yeah.
that naturally they're telling me, "Oh, go to Cancun." So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give it a go. So I flew into Cancun, but got the bus straight down to Tulum.
Mm.
And I was like, I'll do Cancun later on. So I ended up staying in Tulum for a little bit. And I remember throughout the college, because I was there for a month, and I ended up telling them eventually that I'm leaving. They're like, oh, what are you going to do? And I'm like, oh, look, I'm really into my yoga. I'm going to be doing like yoga when I get home and PT stuff. That's what I really want to do. And that narrative of what I was going to do, I started to speak that and tell people that throughout my whole trip.
Yeah.
And that became who I was
Mm.
for that part of time, whatever that 4 months was. So throughout the trip through Mexico, coming through Guatemala, meet yourself, I was doing yoga every day. So I was just doing a little practice in the morning. And as you become closer to people, as you start to travel with people, I'm sure you can relate, they start to buy into who you are as a person. So
Yeah.
they were joining me. I'd have a few different people from hostels in the morning. So, oh, can we join for the yoga tomorrow? Because you talk about it, and then I started to get a lot of genuine gratitude through the after the session. Like, oh, thank you. That was a beautiful way to start the day. Like, so good. And then I come back to that word of connection,
Mm.
where I'm creating these connections for these people and I'm doing it in a hostel with people that I've never met.
Yeah.
And my goal in Melbourne was I've always had different groups of mates and different groups of people. So I wanted to sort of connect them because everyone's kind of around the same age. They've got similar interests, or I know this person will relate. You sort of web it in your head like
Yeah.
this person
Yeah.
will know this person.
Can I
So I'm
connect them in a better sense than drinking beers at a pub?
100%, yeah, doing something different. So yeah, that was what flowed on from that, where I was like talking about this and noticing how much it was changing or how much it was impacting me in the
Mm.
morning. So I was like, okay, I'm going to bring this back to Melbourne. And that sort of came and transpired through that sort of trip.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So how long was that trip?
So that ended up being 4 months total. And the super, like, that was just blissful freedom. Never felt that before. Like,
Yeah.
your first time doing something, right? Like, I just remember anything you could think about, like the first time if you go to like a bush tour for it's the first time you do anything, it's just like, whoa, it's another world. And then the first time
Yeah.
you travel, that's like another thing. And I think the main thing that I've linked that with is your expectations are at a zero. Like you've got
Okay.
no expectations or it, I guess the lack of knowledge means you don't have expectations on what's about to come.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's sort of why I mentioned with the meditation at the start is to remove any expectations you have,
Mm.
because then you're just going in and just feeling and noticing what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fucking awesome, man. I had this when I was looking at your timeline. I was wondering because you have gone full circle in so many ways, and I think a lot of us do, and I'm sure there's no regrets. I
Hmm.
mean, I won't say that on your behalf, but
Yeah.
for certainly in my journey, there's no regrets. But do you ever think back to that 18-year-old studying sports science, kind of almost too naive to know that they're more on track than 20-year-old you was?
Mm.
Like, do you ever
Mm.
think like what could have been if maybe had a certain influence or a certain just something that
Yeah,
kept you there from the start?
for sure. I definitely think that, but then I also think if I if I got that job straight out of, sorry, if I finished that course straight out of school, high
Mm.
school, what could have led to that was straight away getting into a job because you study, do this 3, 4 year degree, and then it's almost like the expectation of getting a job. And who knows, maybe I wouldn't have, maybe I would have gone on another trip, but I wouldn't have done the college because the college was through construction management. It was
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
there's a lot of resilience lessons because I was landscaping for so long that
Mm.
that was like the hardest job I've had to this day. Like it's so fucking tough on the body,
Yeah.
and being able to back that up. And funny story, I got for my second ever marathon.
Yeah.
This was the one that I was actually going for a good time.
Okay.
So I was going to go 3 hours, under 3 hours 30. So that was
Fucking quick.
so throughout the so I was doing estimating because I was in the office more. I wasn't really on site,
Mm.
and ended up working on site for the 2 days before my marathon.
Oh.
And I hadn't worked on site for ages. This, bro, I'm telling you, this is the hardest 2 days I've ever had. It just fucking hit me in the eye. Like, I just didn't even expect it. Well, what we're doing is you got these bales of grass, and
Yeah.
you got to lay the grass out,
Okay. Yeah.
mate, heavy as fuck,
Yeah. It's just
bending
all
down.
water, right?
All
Like
like you're
water.
pretty much doing Romanian deadlifts the whole time. And if they're waterlogged, they're fucked, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, hardest 2 days ever. Had 12 back-to-back 12-hour days. I remember going, sitting in my car, driving home. I got a marathon the next day with me mate. My mate's fresh as fuck, and I just started crying in the car, bro.
Oh.
I'm like, this is the most fucked thing ever. But from that, had an ice bath that night and ran 3 hours 28 the next day.
Oh.
So it showed me that it doesn't really fucking matter if you fucking put the work in.
Yeah. You'll
Just
be good
fucking
for it.
flow on, like you know what I mean. It just keeps going, like. And I'm sure it wasn't the best prep, but I'd done the work.
Mm.
So it just gave me confidence in like, if you put the work in, then you
Yeah.
will be rewarded, you
You,
know?
if you build those roots like the bamboo and
The
suddenly there's
bamboo,
a
exactly
shade or
right.
something, it's still gonna fucking
Yeah,
pop, you
exactly
know?
right. Exactly right. So yeah, to touch back on what you were saying, I think I've always had this, even throughout the journey, I remember noticing that I'm really grateful for dropping out and doing what I had to do because it's led me to sort of where I am at the moment.
Yeah.
And maybe this isn't it. This isn't everything, but it's
Mm.
what I needed. It's what I need right now, and it's what I needed at that time. Because
Yeah.
who knows? I've taken that risk a couple of years ago, and maybe not maybe, there will be another time where I need to take another risk
Yeah.
and make another decision. So it's just I'm better equipped for that now because I've done it before.
Cool. And yeah, this current trajectory you're on, do you feel like it's paying off yet? Do you like how is it going for you?
I think, yeah, in glimpses it has for sure,
Hmm.
100%. Like, I think the people that I've allowed myself to be surrounded by
Mhm.
has really, I guess, elevated different sort of aspects in my life. So throughout high school, I felt I was like mate, public speaking was like the hardest thing I could ever think of doing, and so many people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Like literally shaking, going like sweating, and just like the worst thing ever. And through that, like I've built different things in the journey that I'm at now. That now I'm like hosting a yoga class, so I have to speak in front of people. So
Hmm.
it's actually hitting home. So that they're the glimpses that I'm talking about. Something
Yeah.
like that where five years ago I could never even picture doing, and it's you just like scale it to in front of 20, 30. Most people I had in the class was like 40. So
Wow.
you think about that, and that's like a step in itself. And then you think about the fitness stuff, where learning all these things through those years after footy
Yeah.
would help me be a better coach.
Yeah,
So
sure.
sort of, yeah, it's showing glimpses for sure. I think I'm still on that journey, and what I want to do now is sort of narrate this story behind what I'm doing to allow myself for people to buy in
Yeah.
to what I'm doing. Like what you sort of mentioned was you're seeing these things I'm doing through socials and through a few videos,
Mm.
but to actually do that properly and
Yeah.
put more effort into that, I
Yeah.
think will be really cool because
Do you have a roadmap ahead? Because that's what I mean. Like, and this is why I was maybe getting a bit bogged down into it before, but I'll go back to it. Like, I completely see where you're at and where you're going,
Mhm.
and I guess if I put myself in your shoes, there would be a lot of struggle, doubt, uncertainty in this context of Melbourne and money. Because like I can't feel these glimpses, and I know I'm becoming a better human and like a person.
Mhm.
But like, at what stage do I have to then monetize that?
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
For
And
sure.
like, do you see a maybe a long but a clear road towards something like that, or do you just detach from that? It's like I can just keep on doing this consistently, and it's not about money, for instance. Like,
Mhm.
where do you sit with all those external pressures?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've always had a mindset of if you are really good at what you do,
Hmm.
then the energy will sort of attract to end up you becoming bigger than what you need it to be in
Yeah.
terms of monetizing it and everything like that. So at the moment, I think education for me is priority. So
Educating yourself.
educating myself.
Yeah.
So there is stable income coming through, which is fine. But allowing yourself to prioritize education rather than having that money, because then you
Yeah.
put the money on top, the education is like
Yeah.
put down a little bit,
Yeah.
suppressed. So yeah, definitely see like I've had this pretty interesting year where I got back from so I ended up going on another trip last year
Okay.
expecting, and this is where I talk about expectations because
Mm.
not that I because I went to Europe, right?
Yeah.
Not that I expected a similar trip, but I think I expected to come back and hit the ground running like I was when I
Okay.
came back from Mexico.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of felt like I'd figured everything out, right? When that's the moment you realize you don't, right? So I kind of felt like I figured a few things out when I got home from Mexico, hit the ground running, felt super fucking good. Like I'm on my journey. This is it. This is what I'm doing, and I'll use that momentum to build the Vivona Flow community. Was doing my PT stuff, finished that, went straight overseas again with all my mates and saw family. So it was like this roller coaster of emotions. Did my yoga teacher training and was like going through all these different things where uh, I'd find like I've never experienced like different emotions all in one time. So you're like meeting family for the first time, which is like so wholesome.
Yeah.
But then a few weeks later, you're partying with your mates for 6 weeks, and then you go a step further where you end up finding yourself 4 months or yeah, 4 months in Europe. So 4 months later, I end up being in this yoga retreat where I'm like got all this time to reflect on my trip and myself, and I had this 3 weeks in my own room because I was the only guy in the course.
Okay. Where was this?
This was in Ubud in
Oh,
Bali.
okay. Yeah.
So this was my 200-hour yoga teacher training. And everyone else had a roommate. I just was by myself because I was the only guy, which ended up being the best thing because I had a massive room to myself, so much time to think,
Hmm.
turn my phone off. Didn't touch my phone for 3 weeks. And when you think about it, when's
Yeah.
the last time you've done that? Like
Yeah.
I literally can't remember the last time I've done that, right?
Yeah. A 3 week camp in year 10.
Yeah, literally. Like anyway, so yeah, that survival camp you do, right? Or that's what we did. Anyway, so was like a massive roller coaster of emotions, and I'd come back thinking I'd be like, wow, let's just hit this running. But there was like it sort of backflipped, and I needed to do a lot more work than what I thought I needed to. So more internal stuff that I felt, and there was things going on where my family, I knew my parents were about to divorce, so
Okay.
that was super recent, and yeah, it was like an interesting time where I felt like it was such a I guess positive thing for me to see that they wanted change.
Mm.
So I guess in some ways I'm like this is kind of good because the thing that was letting them down was communication.
Okay. Yeah.
So for them to actually communicate to take that next step was a positive.
Mm.
So there was a positive outlook for me.
Do you believe in that? Like,
Yeah,
do you? Do you believe that they can communicate their way to a better marriage?
100%. Like it been, or
Or is it like do you believe in the fact that it's too little too late and that it's like they need to divorce? Or do you reckon they
I think they needed to,
okay, yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
because they're living their separate lives,
Mm.
and it's quite a, like, if you actually if you if you say it for how it is, it's kind of like a bit, well, that's why don't they just divorce, you know?
Right, yeah.
So I just explain. So they super close with us, but
Mm.
like, say my old man would just sit in the kitchen, do his own thing. My mum would sit in the lounge.
Mm.
But it's been like that for years, right?
Right, yeah.
So every time they'd have to communicate, it'd only be if we were involved or anything like that. So
Okay.
they both checked out,
Yeah.
but they're just sort of not willing to take that risk, which would be super hard.
Mm.
And that's why it was for me to see them actually take that risk was super powerful for me
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I sort
That's
of
happening
lost.
right now or
Yeah,
like this
yeah.
last
So
year, yeah.
it's happened already, but still, and this is, I guess, another reason why I'm back home,
Mm.
and not to check up on anyone, but just to be there for people
Yeah.
and making sure that my sisters are just traveling well. We don't speak about the topic, but we just speak. Just I just want to make sure that they're going well as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. With your question, I can't. Where were you?
Where was I up to? Yeah, I guess I was saying like the you really as you said like you're really bursting out onto the scene
Mm,
from that first trip.
mm,
And that second trip obviously has done something way more self-reflective. Now you're kind of steady. Like
mm,
the question is, there's always this thing of if we use that poker analogy of cashing your chips.
mm,
There's times where you're trying to earn the chips, like
mm,
educate yourself, kind of soak it all in, and then you'll create something really valuable, especially if that's channeled into yoga or
mm,
community or something. And then it's like, now I'm here to dish it out,
mm.
right? And I think that's natural to have that ebb and flow and wave. But when you're going out there doing something that's new, not necessarily revolutionary, but new and it didn't exist in the world before, there is a big punch of momentum. It's kind
Mm,
of, it feels like when I was creating Freedive Afternoon, it felt like this is just an idea in my head.
mm,
This doesn't exist.
mm.
And it's not that the world's against me, but the world doesn't like change. The people in it, the systems in it don't really operate with change. So if you want to impact and change and create something brand new, there's a bit of a punching
Yeah.
through the
Yes.
walls, the
Yes.
fabric of reality,
Yeah.
right? Now, in a place like Guatemala, that was made very easy for me,
Mm,
relatively speaking. It wasn't easy, but relatively speaking, it was
mm.
pretty easy. In a place like Melbourne,
Yeah.
it seems very difficult. And yeah, just exploring that journey that you've been on, where you're at with it, and how the path looks going forward.
Mm. So just touching on your sort of free dive,
Hmm.
would it be, I guess, is it something that you could do in Melbourne?
Um, I given it about 10% effort, and it's
Yeah.
not impossible. It's certainly not as good as it is in
Yeah. No
Guatemala,
way. No
right?
way. Yeah.
Um, so that's why I think this year I was so easily distracted into that other kind of, as we were talking about before, your construction, my like sales thing. That's why I was so easily thrown into that because this is almost a clearer path, even though it's a workaround to
Mm-hmm.
then coming back to freediving. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you earn the money here, then you can get that life.
Yeah.
Where getting that life in a direct path is obviously probably a better answer. But if
Mm-hmm.
it's not clear, if it's hazy because of the context of Melbourne,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think there's so much risk of getting sucked in,
Mm.
right? Whereas when people go to Bali, Guatemala, wherever it is, it's like, no, I can so clearly see a path forward
For
here
sure. For
in
sure.
living an aligned
For
life.
sure.
And I just see you strongly trying to go for that. And I'm just wondering how you're doing and what struggles you're coming against, what kind of feelings of external pressures maybe get in the way, fear, uncertainty, doubt, what you hold on to in the face of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm gonna say definitely, definitely so relatable with that open mindset and what that trip allowed me to see.
Mm.
So coming back was that momentum shift in going hard, like we are saying. So just I know how I guess always relating it back to how I was feeling then. That sort of allowed me to gain momentum.
Yeah.
Definitely what helped was living at home. So you don't have anything that you need to sort of pay for,
Yeah.
like relatively, just you're living at home, right? So I found that now I am out of home, so
Nice.
it is sort of like a little bit more pressure on, yeah, you sort of need to earn an income.
Mm.
But what I've tried to use this period as is to further, like I said, further educate myself so I'm better equipped to fully go for it again.
Yeah.
Like we're saying, punching through that wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that there definitely has been a few struggles with, I guess, I think at the moment once I've like I've sort of explained the sort of timeline I've been on, there's
Mm.
been massive changes in my life, but I think at the moment it's probably one of the biggest changes
Mm-hmm.
I've had in my life in terms of my Melbourne life, I think,
Okay.
for sure. And this has been just living in the same city but living away from parents, right?
Yeah.
Knowing what's going on back home. You obviously grandparents aren't getting any younger,
Yeah.
which has been kind of difficult to sort of process in some ways, but also with friends as well. So I really felt like last week I was sort of telling you how I had my friends over
Mm.
to sort of get them around in a circle. We did a bit of meditation, and that was the first time I'd run a session for a few months because I've been living away from Coburg, so I put the Vivona flow on pause,
Yeah.
and it was again one of those things where it's going to allow a bit of internal motivation and momentum to
Yeah.
go forward. And that was super powerful. I'd love to explain. So what we
Please,
had,
because that sound you explained before and it's so beautiful. Like.
so what we did, my mates had their year of traveling this year. So a few of them went to Asia, a few of them went to Europe, and they all came back around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what I needed from when I got back from Europe was I needed I did some personal reflecting, intention setting, but that's because I was aware of what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And not to say that they weren't, but I just wanted to make sure that they had something or some sort of thing that they could sort of feel like they're reflecting and also intention setting for the future.
Yeah.
So I had everyone over Saturday. We decided to do a meditation session before a barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
And again, those internal thoughts, and this is probably where the struggles come in, where you're
Yeah.
like, fuck man, like I'd love to do this session, but no one's seen each other in ages. They probably don't even want to do it. Like they probably just want to
Yeah.
hang out. So I always get those thoughts.
Yeah.
And maybe that's going to answer your question a bit better. Even with the yoga stuff, as much momentum as I had,
Mm.
there's still those internal thoughts like, man, why the fuck are you doing yoga? Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
who's going to
That's
want to
it.
do yoga?
Yeah.
Like and then you can sort of branch it off to think like, fuck, like, what do people think about doing yoga? Like, it's
Mm.
super feminine, like that sort of vibe. But it's, and as much as like, I'm correcting myself to not think that way, there's still thoughts that come up, right? So I've definitely had a lot of challenges with that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that answers your question a little
I
bit better
think so.
about
Yeah.
before. But that sort of just popped up because when I was thinking about doing it for my mates, they're your fucking best mates, right? And they
Mm.
would do, like, I would do anything that they were interested in,
Yeah.
100%. Like, just give it a crack. And they've done it before, so they've been open to it anyway. But to do it the first time everyone's gonna see each other again since a few months ago,
Mm.
of like 6 months, it was something that I was sort of thinking about. So I ended up doing that and found so much power through that session. So I really found that because everyone's super comfortable in where they are,
Mm.
and that's an important thing, even like for what we did today,
Mm.
making sure I've never been here, right? So I'm gonna
Mm.
make sure that I'm super comfortable with my environment
Yeah.
to allow myself to feel that and to open up and express. So I did that, and I told them that I'd been through sort of this time period, which I've explained. It's been like a challenging year for me, but in the best way possible.
Mm.
So I needed this change and needed to sort of educate and allow myself to realize where I am and sort of redeveloping who I am. Because, like I said before, that moment you feel like you know is when you fucking know nothing,
Yeah.
bro. You
Exactly.
know?
It's
And
fucked,
you
man.
probably felt that before,
Oh,
right?
100%. Yeah.
So yeah, sort of that redevelopment, took them through the session, and I just allowed myself to be vulnerable first,
Yeah.
and then it just opens up this
Cool.
can of worms. So everyone else just shared about who they want to be,
Mm.
their intentions behind their relationships, what do they want from relationships, and there's a few more questions which really you could just feel the energy in the room. It was really strong. Then we had a barbecue after, and just that it's that feeling of, and I get this when I like go back home and like when I see grandparents and when I see my family and have in-depth chats and conversations where your heart literally feels like it's filled up.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments. So yeah, that's probably touching on a bit.
Mate, that is like I just love to hear that because I have had those experiences in Far North Queensland,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had them in a different way in Guatemala, and I've never had them in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I guess I just love it might seem weird to you, but I just love hearing that you're doing what I love and
Yeah.
connect with other places here
Yeah.
because I've felt such a I've felt like it's impossible to have that here.
Mm-hmm.
And even the other weekend, I went for the first time to some waterfall, like an hour and a half drive away towards Healesville.
Yeah.
And we're just like naked in the waterfall,
No shit.
me and my boys. And I was like, this is the stuff that I always wanted to bring people
Yeah.
because I got shown it in Far North
Mm-hmm.
Queensland. And I wanted to show my friends, I wanted to show my ex girlfriend, like, look at this. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
But we can't do this in Melbourne. It doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
It's so true, bro.
And that's why I think I'm so fascinated in you because, like, you're showing me that in your example that it can exist in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, cool. So this education that you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
what does that look like? You've done the yoga teacher
Yeah.
training. You've obviously you know that you have this light in you. You have this ability to create space. Like, what's the education? Because you don't want to get overeducated
Mm.
and without actually like fucking sending it.
Exactly.
And there's a
Exactly.
bit of a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's that sort of thing of like planning and doing, right?
yeah.
So I guess put planning under education, but planning more based around at the moment it's through like anatomy and more the human body.
Okay.
So probably doesn't really touch on to the meditation and holding space. It's probably more of the PT side.
Yeah.
So this is where I love where you can have like different branches, but it sort of all falls under the same sort of thing where it's like wellness and fitness and that sort of vibe. So at the moment, it is more PT orientated, like personal training orientated and learning about the body, but it does yeah, it still is some sort of education, which has been cool. And yeah, I think a big thing that you can probably tell where I think that I wrote this down a few years ago, this word of versatile, and I
Mm,
think that's when I took some time to think about what I want to do and how I want to be portrayed as and how I want to feel, and it's to be versatile.
mm,
It's a really strong word that means a lot to me because it's it's all well and good to be good at one thing, like, but I feel like that just like that construction management, it really locks me off into this one section where I always want to have different things and be able to branch because you can always continue to build on certain things. And I guess it's that thing where, jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing, because it does
yeah,
feel like that sometimes. And
100%,
I
mate.
have felt that pressure where you're like, fuck, I'm not fucking progressing well in a lot of things. But this is that time where yes, there's things going on in the background, but at the moment I have that education on my PT thing. So that's my sole focus at the moment.
Mm,
And everything else is coming in between. So I'll do like my yoga sessions. I'll have like I said the other weekend, have a session like that, and that will stem and just keep me intact with these things. Like it's always
all
at
the other
arm's
trades.
reach. Yeah,
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 they're just all there. I'm still touching on them, but not as frequent because I know what my priority is right now.
yeah. So that like if you're going to be a master of something, it's going to be the PT stuff. And then like the jack of all trades is kind of the other things and because they all somewhat aligned as well.
Yeah, they're all somewhat aligned. Yeah, for sure. I think definitely at the moment, well, at the moment it is for sure.
Mm.
But like I was saying before, in a couple of years, who knows where that
Yeah,
leads?
yeah, that stuff might really draw you in and become, yeah, it's
Mm,
cool. I think, as you said, having the patience to having the patience to do that, like
Mm,
to back yourself and okay, the PT is maybe for instance, running PT training sessions are probably easily to pay the rent in
mm.
the short term than like holding meditation classes.
Yeah, no
So I can
doubt.
kind of focus on that a bit while I also do the whole rounding
For
thing.
sure.
Where construction management might like pay more than the rent, pay the
Mm,
mortgage, but I have to go all into it.
yeah,
I'm not willing
yeah.
to sacrifice
And
that.
it's probably not me as well, right?
Yeah, it's a really good framing, man.
Mm,
Really good framing because I've certainly seen in my own life, like with freediving is probably my equivalent of personal training for
mm.
you,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And it's like, I know the podcast and stuff is the other
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And just to parallel it. Um, and I've got friends who are all in on freediving.
Mm,
Like that is their thing, diving 100 meters. And especially seeing that and seeing and feeling and talking to them, I know I'm not that.
mm.
That might be, you might
Yeah,
have PT friends who are like all in on PT and don't
100%,
give a
bro.
fuck about meditation, holding
Yeah.
space. And seeing them and realizing that you're not them. And if you
Mm.
try to be them, you'd just be worse.
I'd
You'd
be
compete.
miserable, bro.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Because you'd be competing and
yeah,
not be as good.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough position to be in. I think well, on the younger end. I think in
Mm,
the long term it will pay off,
mm.
but certainly.
No doubt.
Cool.
Just gonna go to the bathroom quick.
Please, please,
Yeah.
please.
Oh, you probably hear me pissing in the toilet.
No, good luck, good luck.
No, I was in like on the mic, on the
Oh,
body. Yeah.
true.
Chuck that one in.
Wait, oh yeah. Wait, talk.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Good.
It's still picking you up. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
cool.
Um, man, like one thread I've kept on hitting in almost every conversation because they're basically been all dudes.
Mm,
I'm a dude. I'm
mm,
a young guy. I'm trying to figure out what that means. So, I'm kind of
mm,
more attracted to guys and their stories for now. Um, Everyone has mentioned mental health.
mm-hmm,
And you don't strike me as the kind of guy who's maybe been through a big, like, depression stage.
mm.
I haven't. Is that wrong or
Not depression,
yeah?
but we can touch on it. What was your?
I was just
Yeah.
gonna say like a lot of this stuff you're doing, the meditation, the creating space, your friends are mainly like, dudes that's going on. Has that have you noticed that as a thing, as a calling, as a passion, as a point of meaning? Like there's a huge male, well, everyone, but significantly young male mental health crisis
Mm,
in the Melbourne context, in the
yeah,
modern world.
for sure.
Like, is that a thing that you're
Oh,
cool towards?
100%. So you think about sometimes you think about why you do certain things and where it stemmed from, and I really had to think back. Like through my high school days, I was probably like a pretty outspoken, pretty confident, just in myself, and probably naively confident.
Okay.
Just being a boy and just being pretty cocky and I guess
Yeah.
that kind of vibe.
Nothing to base this on, but
No, just got not just you just being a dude, right? Like,
yeah.
which is all well and good, but then something hit me in like year 10, 11, where I started to get a lot of anxiety, and it was like
Okay.
social anxiety where I never knew where it sort of came from, and I get like really flustered, and I just didn't know why it was happening or what was going on.
Hmm.
So allowing myself to find yoga, and that sort of found me because a friend was doing that,
Hmm.
and he's like, "Oh, you should do this," and that's sort of allowed me to give it a go for
Yeah.
starters, but then also realize the impact that it had on me. So
Hmm.
it was also through fitness, so it wasn't just yoga.
Hmm.
So fitness would allow that dopamine release, and you'd feel really good for, but it doesn't last forever, you know. So
Hmm.
after a run or after a sick workout, you'd feel fucking unreal.
Yeah.
And I want to be in that state for as long as I can, but it goes away, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden I feel anxious again. I'm like, fuck, how do I help myself? Fucking smash myself, go again.
Yeah.
So that's probably where that 18, 19-year-old self getting into running and
Boxing,
yeah,
running,
doing all this shit. I'm
everything.
like,
Yeah.
fuck, I'm feeling really good from this, but it's only for this period of time. So if I do more of it, I'm gonna feel better. But it doesn't always work like that. You
Hmm.
also gotta deal with things mentally, emotionally, and I feel like I was feeding into that with the yoga because I was slowing down time.
Cool.
I was releasing tension through my body. So especially yin yoga, and it's known scientifically proven. It's not just a myth. That where you like
Hippie science.
we call it, yeah, I know, right? AB science where you got the myofascia,
Okay.
and through myofascia we carry a lot of tension and emotion. So holding these positions when you're say for example the hips, we store a lot of emotion in the hips.
Yeah.
When we're sitting in these poses, we can release tension, but you're also, I think about exhaling my emotions out.
Mm.
And I really started to notice a change from a yoga session. So that's where that all stemmed from. And I had better control over my emotions. I was more aware of how I was feeling and able to actually control certain aspects of, like, say, being in front of people, talking, speaking, and that was helping with my anxiety. So it did stem from having really bad social anxiety throughout 11 and 12. And this was something I was super closed off about because I didn't want to tell people because I'd be like, fuck, I'm going to tell my mates and fuck, what are they going to think of me? But
Yeah.
they wouldn't even,
Yeah.
they would actually want me to tell them, you know?
Sure.
But it's that, it's being naive, being young, you don't realize that being open actually helps you more.
Mm.
So it's something I noticed more down the track. And if you relate most things I do, it probably does stem from something along the lines of that. Obviously, I'm passionate about it. I've always loved sport and fitness, but in terms of mental health and mental well-being, I want people to feel this connection and feel confident and comfortable, probably because I know or I've felt like I haven't in the past.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that probably comes from that as well. And maybe like to look even deeper, when you think about connection, why do I crave connection? Is it because, and this could be just a thought I've had now, where
Mm.
because you haven't seen it with, maybe your parents, which I was talking about before, it could be that.
Yeah.
So there are things that sort of mold you as a person. And I think going on this journey of uh, wanting connection and wanting people to connect has definitely come from my own sort of things that I've dealt with for sure.
Yeah,
So
cool. Like
answers.
that definitely does.
Mm.
And I'm imagining your 18, 19 yourself, like 3 workouts in a day, all sorts of
Bruh,
different
just
things.
smashing shit like that.
And then probably and I think this is what most people I see young men get into, is they probably have that period of late teens
Mm,
where they have the time to
mm,
do something like that. Or they're just going out all the time with their friends, or they're like, whatever it is to distract themselves from that,
mm-hmm,
whatever it is. And then when you start having to, as you say, narrowing yourself into one
mm,
career path, and you don't have time to put all those healthy or unhealthy band-aids on, that's when it starts to fall apart,
for sure,
you know?
for sure.
Um, really cool, I guess, mission. And as you say, we've all got fucking traumas, all this stuff,
Oh, we all
right?
do, right?
It's
Everyone
all
does.
going
Yeah, yeah,
on.
yeah,
It's all
yeah.
relative as
Mm-hmm.
well, but it's about how you can channel that for the positive, you know. Really, I think from the outside, you're quite obviously doing that very well.
Mm,
Yeah, you're just speaking about releasing it for yourself, and then not just releasing it for yourself, so you become almost a clean slate. So all the positive, you don't have to you don't have to rub the positive on to like fix. Like, okay, put it this way. This is a decent framing. I have all these whatever traumas.
mm,
This is affecting me in a negative sense. So I have to like grab
mm,
positive, exercise,
mm,
this, relationships, whatever it is, just to like help myself not feel bad.
mm,
But if you start releasing that negativity,
mm.
you just become more neutral.
Yeah,
So then every positive you get
yeah,
is not necessary,
mm,
it's extra.
yeah,
And you can start dishing that out
yeah,
and sharing that.
yeah,
And I think that's what you're doing.
yeah. 100%,
Mm.
100%. And to relate that back to when I've felt similar, is every time I've had a sort of intention or purpose behind something, that those positive things. So I'll explain. I'll just give you a scenario
Mm.
where I felt like traveling in Europe. I got a bit lost at some points,
Mm-hmm.
and then I found when I went to Indonesia, I went to Lombok just to surf,
Yeah.
and I had a purpose of why I was there.
Mm.
So that purpose is what we're talking about, and then everything else that I had, like if I went out one night or I met up with people and had like another friendship, that was all an extra. That was the bonus.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you got that purpose of what I want to do, everything else becomes an extra, an
Yeah, whereas
addition.
in Europe you might have been like just grabbing at whatever
Yeah, yeah,
comes and really
exactly what I'm saying. Yeah,
desperate. And
yeah,
I've certainly felt that this
yeah.
year, like in a relationship of my own, I
Mm,
felt like that, like not having a solid purpose, and then I don't think any relationships can withstand that,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a bit of a tragedy. Um, that's really cool. Now we all understand the external pressures, like what drove you to the good job.
Mm.
Now that you're kind of past that hill and not immune to it, but
Mm.
somewhat past it, how have the external pressures changed?
Yeah. I'd say external pressures change because they're not thinking I'm not second guessing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So those questions that you ask, fuck, is this really what I want to do? They sort
Yeah.
of aren't as strong. Like they still come up every now and then. You think, fuck, is this like? And maybe that's just where I am at the moment because I
Yeah.
know it's not the end
You see
goal.
someone wingsuiting, you're like, wow, that's even cooler than what
Yeah,
I do.
fucking no, you know what I mean? Like there's always going to be that stuff, and I guess with
Yeah.
social media, it's hard to sort of just not accept, but know that what I'm doing is
Yeah.
really what I want to do.
Because I think like it's very easy in the context of going around whoever you're seeing to be like, if I'm the PT doing meditation classes, that's always going to be cooler and more aligned than the construction.
Mm,
But maybe it's not cooler and more aligned than the bloody pro rock climber
yeah,
influencer, whatever. Yeah.
whoever it is, yeah. But then I think, that's not probably not what I want to do, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that external pressures probably come more so. Sorry, do not ask your question again. So,
Yeah. So the external pressures used to be like get a good job and all that stuff. And maybe they're not so external now. Maybe they're more internal. I was thinking like, have the pressures changed to, for instance, if I need to unlock my potential,
mm,
like for instance, for me in the free diving, it might not be, get a good job, do a career path, make all this money to buy a mansion in Turak,
yeah,
but it might be like, I know how deep I can go. I know how much value I can provide. I know
yeah,
how much I can use social media to leverage this.
yeah,
Why aren't I doing it? I'm a
yeah,
lazy cunt.
yes, 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 yeah. So definitely would say that the pressures similar to that where you're well, my pressure now is trying to build myself to allow myself to have more freedom.
Mm,
So what that looks like is to be able to push more socials, right? And to
yeah.
be more online based and to give myself that time for myself as well, because that will free myself a lot more time and to do things I want to do, like
Yeah.
more. And this is obviously what I want to do, but I also want to have a lot of time for my own training and that sort of stuff. So that's probably where freedom lies, like me being free and training whenever, doing my thing, staying fit and healthy and doing cool things, experiencing. So freedom is where the pressure comes in. So
Mm,
doing everything in order to attain that freedom is what the pressure is. So that's posting more on socials, and now it's instead of posting more, it's creating a narrative and story about what I'm doing because I've posted a bit,
mm,
but you're just posting a video. So constructing, I've got things in the works where I'm going to try and narrate more of a story,
mm-hmm.
and also more pressures, probably based on, yeah, like what we were saying before with, yeah, it is that, yeah, socials and like, fuck, I could do, instead of a marathon, could do fucking this and that, so it's always going to evolve. But I guess my favorite saying, probably the one I've been living by, is like, you're exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
Like, you're exactly where you need to be right now. And an example of that is throughout, like, learning craft and all these different things have sort of come up and built up to this point that I'm now. But I never knew that learning all those things, I would use that now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's always like that has made me realize that, maybe like I'm just trying, you're just on the path, right? You're just taking one step at a time on this path, one step at a time on this path. And you don't always need to be moving fast on this path, but you just got to know that you're on it. And I think realizing that, knowing that I'm actually still on it, and sometimes you're gonna like have a roadblock or a speed hump here and there. You've got to slow down a bit on this path, but you're still on it. and then sometimes you move fast, you jump on a freeway, right? You just go a little bit quicker on this path
Mm.
and things will come up. Or I come home and I'm doing yoga and all these things happening and it's evolving momentum, momentum, momentum. But then sometimes right now I've slowed down education, doing this slow step, slow step, slow step. Because that next time I've got to pivot and move, it's going to be a little bit smoother.
Very cool.
Mm,
I love that image.
mm,
And I think I would say to myself, and it sounds like you're way better at it than me, I'm on a path through a dark forest and I have a torch that only shines one path, like one step ahead. Okay, do I have the strength and courage to just keep on walking anyway?
mm,
Probably. It sounds like you, I know I do, probably do. But it annoys me.
mm,
It just eats away at me that I know there's things out in the forest that I might get to eventually, but I could just take one step to the right and
mm,
get there quicker.
mm,
Like there's a book that I need to read that if I read it now, I could save the next 2 years of this path and just
mm.
shortcut.
Yeah.
Or there's a person I can meet or a
Yes,
conversation, or
yes,
like
yes,
if I
yes, yes,
take this
yes,
jujitsu class or
yes.
whatever it is, like I can. There's unlimited paths to this forest, and they're all going to be good and right and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if I just take this degree through the darkness here,
Yeah,
it's going to be better and quicker than if I take
yeah,
this one. It's like,
yeah, for sure. But there's endless routes and opportunities. That's so true because yeah, if you do meet people, and that's why you got to also have trust in what you're doing, but also be opened to be able to connect with people, and just like you did with your trip where you met that guy,
mm.
um, where his old man with
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So say like knowing him, who knows what that could lead to, or like this, for example,
That's
where
why I'm doing this,
yeah,
man.
exactly
Like,
right.
yeah,
So who knows where this can sort of lead to and how that can help you through other things. So yeah, definitely being open to that for sure.
cool. Fucking awesome. Um, real quick, like we kind of skirted around it. We touched on obviously your friendships and your circles, um, and like the parents' divorce. I'm just curious.
Yeah,
What's your position with like girls and partners and
yeah,
stuff?
for
Like,
sure. So at the moment, just staying single. I think I need to for the time being. I've had like certain moments where, especially before my first trip,
yeah,
I was seeing this girl for probably like at least 7 months,
mm,
right? And then we sort of said, oh, we'll see how things happen when we get back. And
mm.
when
You
I'd,
changed a lot that first trip, though.
yeah, and I'd changed so much as a person where I was like second guessing, like, did I really have a good connection with her or was I used to the company and like,
Yeah.
because you can love anyone really, right? So
Oh,
it's so easy to. So knowing if we had a genuine connection or not was something I really had to think about. When I come back, I was like, well, I actually don't have those feelings anymore. And it's not just with her, it was with a lot of other relationships I had with friends and people that
mm,
I needed to either build up because I wanted to or realizing that maybe that's not, relationship's not for me.
mm.
But yeah, back to that. And then the same sort of thing happened before I went to Europe, but I knew what had happened in the past, so I made sure that that stopped.
So you were in a relationship going into Europe.
Not in a relationship, but just sort of
Yeah.
seeing someone. But yeah, at the moment, like after the Europe, like you do have a bit of fun in Europe, and that's all well and good.
Mm,
But coming back, I did need to do a bit of work and making sure that you're not in a relationship just to get something physical from it,
mm,
because that's what I found in Europe. It's all well and good to have these connections and you have this holiday romance and things like that. And I did have a holiday romance in Mexico, and it was so fun. But then when you come back, you sort of are left with an empty feeling
yeah.
almost. So yeah, it was really recognizing that when I got home and making sure that you do slow the process down and get to know someone,
Yeah.
doing what and it's not what you should be doing, but it's just doing what I needed to be doing. So at the moment, I'm just enjoying my time as a human, just meeting whoever naturally and
Yeah.
just trying to navigate through that way for
Yeah.
sure.
Do you find that because obviously you're a very like stable, open person, I think, easy to connect with for basically everyone, especially if they're not resentful of that
Mm-hmm.
in any way. Do you find that that makes it easier to connect with women, for example, but maybe do they, I can just off the top of my head think that maybe they kind of fall into two brackets quite extreme of like, oh my God, this is the first man I've ever seen be vulnerable and
Mm.
feminine. Like, I love him, he's the
Yeah.
one. Or like, yeah, like
Friend. Yeah.
he's not rich, he's a friend.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can almost see them as a judgment, like
Yeah.
falling into both two camps extremely. Has
Yeah.
that been the case, or is that?
Uh, I guess depends the environment in which you, I guess, meet someone in
Mm,
and what your, I guess, intentions are. Like, I guess I always would always want the first option first, like being super friendly with someone.
yeah,
And then if you can catch a sort of vibe, then I would probably make it a bit more obvious
yeah,
that you're sort of interested
yeah,
in a different way. Because I think, yeah, it's very good. Like, doesn't matter who it is. Like, if it's a girl that you'd want to see or not, you'd want to make that person feel comfortable. Just like in this podcast where you want me to sort of show my best self, and you can only
mm,
do that if someone's comfortable.
yeah,
So it doesn't matter what relationship it is,
yeah.
you always want that person to feel as comfortable as possible. So
That's very true.
yeah, I've probably noticed a little bit of that, but it's not something that it's affected me too much because
Yeah,
it's like, okay, I'm cool with that. I'm
yeah,
super cool with
yeah,
being, yeah, friendly with people, no
yeah,
doubt.
yeah. Interesting. Very
Because
interesting.
yeah,
Cool. And like where, and I guess this whole thing has been a bit. Do you have like a strong sense of, I don't know how to word this. This is how I've worded it in the past.
yeah,
Some people are religious and like their highest thing that they answer to
hmm,
is God. If their family told them to do something, but God said the opposite, they'd follow God,
yeah,
right? Some people might. What's your that highest entity that you might be answerable to?
yeah, cool. It's weird because growing up next door to Nonna Nonno. Nonna was religious. My great grandma was super religious.
Okay.
So she passed away at 106. So even till 102, she's telling me
106,
all the time, like, you have to pray, and just
bro.
not forcing you, but just like reminding you, pray to God. Like it's really helpful. And I went to a Catholic school,
Yeah.
so yeah, you do sort of. It's not that you don't believe, but I've sort of lost the practice of it. So
Mm,
I feel at the moment, my thing, and it could be an arrogant way to put it, but it is yourself,
yeah.
like finding out, it's like your own intuition, your internal thoughts and feelings is sort of how I see myself to be, I guess, think in a spiritual way.
Mm,
Not that I say I'm super spiritual, because if you were to look at me through appearance, I'm not someone that wants to express
yeah.
that. When what we were saying before about you go to that place in is it San Marco, when you
Yeah.
see like people that, and it's often the people that want to really show it are the ones that have that ego. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm sort of in that fine line in between like religion, spirituality, but just like my own sort of
Yeah.
own frame of mind
Yeah,
kind
that
of thing.
internal voice, I mean, that religious people would probably be, yeah, that's the voice of God inside you.
Yeah,
That's the
of
angel on the
course, of
shoulder,
course.
right? And no,
I
it's a great
reckon
answer.
it's, whether it's religion, spirituality, it's all just to give people something higher than yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's to give people confidence and belief and something to follow.
Mm,
And whatever you want to look at it, however you want to look at it, all the religions and everything, it's sort of, for me now, it's kind of all molds into one. So it's
yeah.
so, like, whether you want to put God into your own thoughts or your own feelings and how you think, yeah, it's all kind of merges into one, which is beautiful, but people don't see it. Not everyone sees it as
Mm,
that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I see like business entrepreneurs and stuff saying like their goals, like they'll say things like, my goals, yeah, I care about my goals more than my friends. And it's like, well, weird, off the cuff, but it's like,
Yeah.
oh, because that's basically your version of the voice of God.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Facts. Yeah.
Cool.
100%, bro.
Nice. Is there anything else that you reckon's
Mm,
on your mind?
on the spot, I'd say,
Doesn't have to be.
yeah, no, it doesn't have to be. How can we end things? I think, yeah, probably as well as, and this is could be a yoga term, but the way I've sort of lived things probably for the past few years is it's not about what happens, it's how you react, and that's been a huge one. So just with everything that's happened, whether it's been good, positive, bad, like there's, and even if it is bad, there's always a positive in
Mm.
in everything. So, just what I was saying about my parents before, like people, all my friends are saying, "Fuck, man, I hope you're right." I'm like, yeah, like I understand that that's the first thought, but like there's actually a positive. There's obviously negative things as well, but you can look at things through a different lens with any situation. So if I was to say anything to leave things off, it'd definitely be it's how you react to any situation. It could be as cliche of a line as there is, but it's honestly one of the fucking truest things that you could probably say.
Fuck yeah. I
Fuck yeah,
love
bro.
it. That's so good.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for this because, as I say, like, I don't know how many people will connect with where I went with it, like where the
Hmm.
questions. Um, this felt like a bit of a selfish
Yeah,
line of
that's the
questioning.
yeah. But you never know, right? Like
You never know,
it.
because yeah, like for me, like I don't see anyone else who, in context to Melbourne, is walking a path that I could imagine walking
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
But maybe there's a lot of people stuck in the construction management jobs who are like,
Exactly,
fuck, I
bro.
want
And they want to get out. Exactly right. But the questions that you ask will attract that audience that have a similar mindset to you, right?
mm,
So, and obviously, like things will change as you go on. And
yeah.
there's that thing where like if you when you look back at your first thing, you'll be like, oh, what the fuck, you
Oh,
know?
I'm gonna
Yeah,
hate this,
you're
but
gonna
it's not.
hate it, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's fucking so good for you, right?
Oh,
So,
so good.
yeah, and that's why I want to jump on. Like, you're someone that I see we're kind of on a similar path, like we were saying
Yeah,
before. We're just trying to find what we're doing,
yeah.
trying to create what we're doing, not just
How
wait
can
for it
we
to come to
exactly?
us, like
How can
trying
we?
to go get it as well. So yeah, I was just like, fuck, let's jump on. I've never done a potty before as well,
Yeah,
so
fuck
why
yeah.
not? It's gonna help me, it's gonna help you. Why
Yeah,
not, bro?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
So, thank you so much.
No
Yeah.
worries, bro. How do you end
So,
things like that?
oh, nothing. I don't know. Just whatever.
Just like that. Beautiful. Done. Let's do that.
We'll cut off here.
Beautiful. Easy. I've got to jump home actually.